They said it was an HOA inspection. At 3 o'clock in the morning, four adults in black vests showed up, flashlights cutting through my kitchen window like they were clearing a crime scene. I remember sitting up in bed, heart pounding, wondering, what kind of inspection starts like this? And the strangest part, my kid was already awake, already moving like he'd sensed it before I did. I don't care how strict your homeowners association is. This wasn't policy. This was something else entirely. Ever had a moment where your neighborhood rules turned wrong? Let me know in the comments. Most days, the forest around Pine Lake felt like armor. It muffled your thoughts, softened the edges of memories you'd rather not revisit. But lately, I'd found myself on edge again, pacing my living room like a man with invisible chains tightening around his chest. I knew the signs. I'd seen them before, back when a rising elevator could knock the air clean out of my lungs. One of those memories hit me the other morning, uninvited and raw. Me in a suit, clutching the chrome railing inside a crowded elevator in a downtown high-rise, heart pounding like a jackhammer. A soft ding marked the 20th floor, and the walls seemed to close in. I remember the guy beside me asking, "You okay, man?" But his voice sounded like it was underwater. I wasn't okay. I was sweating through my shirt, couldn't breathe, praying for the doors to open so I could bolt. That was the moment I knew I couldn't survive corporate life, not when every commute felt like drowning in fluorescent-lit panic. So we left. My wife Emily and I packed up our lives and moved to a cabin buried deep in the forested heart of the Pine Lake community. A place so quiet you could hear deer chewing at dawn. I needed that quiet. After years of toxic meetings and gaslighting supervisors, I craved solitude like oxygen. Emily, a trauma nurse who worked night shifts at the county ER, supported the move completely. She'd spent one evening restraining a violent patient who'd hurled a chair across a hallway and still walked into the next trauma code with ice in her veins. She was the kind of calm I aspired to be. Our 12-year-old son, Tyler, was just happy to escape the city school where bullies used to stuff his backpack into urinals. For 3 golden years, we finally breathed again. Tyler thrived in the woods. He spent hours flying his drone, setting up motion sensors, and stalking deer with a cheap GoPro strapped to his baseball cap. He transformed from a timid, fidgety kid into someone who asked real questions about wildlife migration and security camera placement. I started freelancing, offering wildlife monitoring systems to local conservation groups, and my anxiety settled into a manageable hum. Our family found rhythm. Emily came home at dawn. I made breakfast. Tyler narrated owl sightings over pancakes. It wasn't flashy, but it was peace. And peace for us was everything. Then came Frank Brennan. 4 months ago, he showed up with a pickup truck, a leathery glare, and a promise to restore order to our aging community. He was elected HOA president within 2 weeks, mostly thanks to retirees scared by a few random car break-ins and rumors about outsiders hiking near the lake. At 58, Frank looked like a worn-out action movie villain, gray hair buzzed tight, chest puffed with ex-cop bravado. What we didn't know then was that he'd been fired from the police force for taking bribes, lost his wife the following year to cancer, and now clung to this show of power like it was the last thing keeping him upright. His new role wasn't about community safety. It was about control. At first, the rules seemed mildly annoying. Keep grass trimmed below 2 inches. Outdoor lights mandatory from dusk to dawn. Only HOA-approved security cameras allowed. I shrugged it off. We'd moved here to escape micromanagement. Surely it would blow over. But it didn't. Frank escalated fast. I caught him walking the property line with a measuring tape, jotting notes into a spiral pad. When I asked what he was doing, he said, "Just ensuring compliance, Grant." The way he said it made my stomach twist. I wasn't just being monitored. I was being hunted. The first real confrontation came when Tyler flew his drone near Frank's roof, filming squirrels for a school project. Frank marched over like we'd breached enemy territory. Unauthorized aerial surveillance is a privacy violation, he barked, grabbing at the remote. Tyler froze, pale as paper. I stepped between them, pulse thudding. "He's 12, I said. "He's filming squirrels, not planning an invasion." Frank smiled, all teeth. Respect for authority starts early. I recognized that tone. I'd heard it from my old boss who used to mock my panic attacks behind closed doors. That smirk said, "I've picked my target." A week later, Emily was washing her car in the driveway at 10 p.m., headlights off, still in scrubs. Frank appeared like a ghost, clipboard in hand. "Late-night activities make folks nervous," he said, voice dripping with fake concern. Emily blinked, soaked from head to toe, then leaned on the hood like she was about to deliver a TED Talk. "Frank," she said flatly, "I save lives all night while you play mall cop. This is my home, my driveway, my car. And if my washing offends your sense of order, maybe look away." He left without a word, but the message was clear. He wasn't done. Later that night, Tyler stood by the kitchen window, staring at the empty road. Emily walked over, smoothed his hair, and crouched beside him. "You okay, bud?" He nodded slowly. "Why does he hate us?" She exhaled. "Sometimes people bully others when they feel small. The trick is to remember, they don't define who you are." Tyler hesitated. "What if he comes back?" She smiled gently. "Then we stand tall together." That quiet exchange, more than any lecture, planted a seed in Tyler that would bloom later, when it mattered most. The very next morning, I got my first whisper of something darker. Old Mr. Henley, a retired machinist who walked his dachshund past my driveway every morning, slowed his shuffle and leaned in. "Careful, son," he muttered. "Saw Brennan inside the Carsons' shed last night. Said he was checking for hazardous tools. Didn't look like checking to me." Then he shuffled off, dog trotting behind. My skin prickled. Unauthorized inspections. Breaking and entering under the guise of HOA regulation. Something was seriously off. Doug showed up 2 weeks later, a stocky, sunburned man in cargo pants with a belt full of flashlights and a badge that said Volunteer Security Liaison. He introduced himself as a former private security specialist, but I could tell from his shifty gaze and jittery posture that this was the most power he'd ever had. Doug glued himself to Frank like duct tape, taking notes, shining flashlights into windows, walking in circles like a Roomba with bad programming. Emily dubbed him the clipboard phantom. I wasn't laughing. I noticed Tyler's fear creeping back in, but this time it wore a different mask. One afternoon, I walked into his room and found a notebook covered in diagrams. "What's this?" I asked. He hesitated. "Camera zones. Blind spots. Places someone could sneak in." His voice was calm, matter of fact. "I don't want to be surprised again." That shook me. He wasn't just scared. He was adapting, learning, preparing. I sat beside him, heart heavy. "You don't have to carry this, kiddo." He shrugged. "I'm not scared anymore. I'm just getting ready." Looking back, I know now that moment was when the tide shifted. The old me would have spiraled, called a therapist, begged for a sedative. But instead, I studied Tyler's diagrams, ran cable through the attic, upgraded our camera system with night vision and motion alerts. My anxiety didn't vanish, but it sharpened into something useful. Frank didn't realize it yet, but he'd awakened 2 very different kinds of survivors. One who'd learned to fight systems from the inside out, and one who had no interest in waiting for permission to fight back. Emily and I stopped pretending things would blow over the moment Doug started pacing our yard with a flashlight like he was guarding Fort Knox. He never said a word, just scribbled into his little clipboard while his boots crunched through the dead pine needles. One night, Tyler pointed out that Doug wasn't alone anymore. Frank's cousin Ray had joined the nightly patrols, slinking through the shadows like some second-rate henchman. "They're playing cops and robbers," Emily muttered one night, closing the blinds. "Only problem is, they think we're the robbers." But Tyler didn't retreat. He got to work. I found him in his bedroom, adjusting one of my old trail cams on a makeshift tripod made from Lego parts and duct tape. "Testing angles," he said without looking up. "Going to sync it with the motion alert app on your phone." His calm tone unnerved me more than fear ever could. I watched him switch off the lights, trigger the sensor, then review the footage with laser focus. "You're setting up surveillance on your own room?" I said. He nodded. "If they come in, I want faces and timestamps." That wasn't a scared kid. That was a 12-year-old building a perimeter. That night, I stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, thumb hovering over the number 9. Okay, I whispered to myself, trying to rehearse. Hello. Yes, I need to report harassment from our HOA security volunteers. I stopped. My throat tightened. They're not breaking in exactly, but they're watching. Following my wife. She's scared. My kid, too. I couldn't say it all. Couldn't make it sound real. The words felt flimsy, like I was describing a nightmare I wasn't sure I'd actually had. My heart pounded, sweat pooling under my arms. Maybe it's nothing, I whispered. Maybe I'm making it worse. I stared at the phone screen until the light dimmed. I didn't make the call. The next morning, I caught Doug and Ray near the mailbox. They didn't see me, but I heard enough. We can't just go in tonight, Ray hissed. Too risky. He's got cameras everywhere. Doug shrugged. That's why we're watching. We wait for the right time. Ray snapped. If we get caught, Frank will pretend he never said anything. They walked off, unaware of the chill they left behind. I shook my head, telling myself I'd misunderstood. Maybe they were talking about deer hunting. Maybe my anxiety was making monsters again. Emily didn't let anything slip past her anymore. Every night, she logged flashlight sightings into a spiral notebook, noting the time, direction, and who was holding the beam. We sat together, cross-referencing that with our camera footage and drawing patterns on a laminated map of Pine Lake. They're probing the edges, she said, circling our shed and garden with a red marker. They never come near the front door. Always the sides. The shadows. I asked her how she stayed so calm. She gave me a look I hadn't seen since med school. Remember that stalker patient? The one who followed me out of the... I nodded slowly. He used to call the nurse's station 5 times a night. She tapped the map. Predators test your response first, she said. If you freeze, they escalate. A few days later, Tyler asked if we could go into the woods to do a gear check. I knew what he meant. We grabbed 2 old walkie-talkies, the trail cam toolkit, and his toy shotgun, the kind that looked way too real under low light. As we trudged past the tree line, he said, "Let's say they're coming from the east. Where would we post up?" I pointed to the ridge overlooking our backyard. "That's your overwatch position. High ground, full view." We tested the radio range, checked infrared triggers, and practiced moving quietly through the underbrush. At one point, Tyler crouched behind a fallen log, the plastic shotgun cradled in his arms like it mattered. "Dad," he whispered, "what if they come in and I freeze?" I knelt beside him, heart pounding. "Then you breathe," I said. "And, remember, they're scared too. Bullies crumble when you don't give them the reaction they want." He nodded, eyes hard. That moment stitched something new between us. Not just fear, not even strategy. Understanding. Our rhythm changed after that. Mornings started with gear checks and motion alert reviews. Evenings were for updating the map and calibrating cameras. Tyler created a spreadsheet tracking flashlight sightings, color-coding each visitor. Frank in red, Doug in blue, Ray in yellow. "We should give them superhero names," he joked once, like Captain Creepy and the Flashlight Crew. We laughed, but the joke felt thin, like a raincoat in a hurricane. Emily began leaving work earlier when she could, using her breaks to walk the perimeter with me. One night, she told me the worst part of the ER wasn't the blood or the chaos. It was the patients who had been ignored for too long. By the time they screamed, it was already too late. She touched the map gently. "We're not ignoring this." I kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you," I said. She smiled faintly. "I'm proud of us." Then, one evening, we came home to find a printed notice stapled to our front gate. * Emergency HOA Security Inspection. October 15th, 3 a.m. Residents may not delay access. Noncompliance will result in fines. * It was signed, Chief Security Officer Frank Brennan. Tyler stared at it, then ripped it down. "They're not even hiding it anymore," he said. I looked around, no neighbors watching, just the forest, still and indifferent. "It's a bluff," I said. They wouldn't actually, but I didn't finish that sentence because deep down I knew they would. That night, we sat down and planned like we'd never planned before. Emily laid out a rotation schedule to monitor the cameras without exhausting ourselves. Tyler synced alerts to vibrate our phones silently. I installed 2 new trail cams hidden inside fake birdhouses and replaced every battery in the motion sensors. If they come in, I said, we catch them. No ambiguity, Emily added. No excuses. And we do it safely. No one opens a door. No one engages. Just document, call the sheriff, and lock down. Tyler hesitated. What if they try to take our stuff? My drone. Your laptop? Emily smiled calmly. Stuff can be replaced. People can't. He nodded, then said, but I still want to be ready, just in case. She pulled him into a hug. That's my boy. That night, as the wind rustled through the pines and the last light drained from the sky, I sat at the dining table tracing the red routes we'd drawn on the map. Every line meant something now. Every dot a warning. And somewhere out there, Frank and his flashlight goon squad were making their own plans. But they had no idea just how ready we'd become. October 15th arrived with a silence that wasn't peaceful. It was loaded, the kind of stillness you hear right before lightning splits a tree. At 2:15, I was in the living room, hunched over the monitor bank, watching each grainy feed like it might explode. Camera 1 clear, I muttered. Camera 2 wind. Camera 3 movement. No, just branches. My breath came short and fast, chest tight like someone had looped a belt around my ribs. Emily sat at the dining table with a small stun gun in one hand and a road flare in the other. 2:37, she said, checking her phone. We've got 23 minutes. Her voice was steady, but I saw her fingers twitch. She was prepping like she'd prepped a trauma bay, every movement efficient, clean, ready for chaos. Upstairs, Tyler was in position behind the kitchen island. His face was pale, yes, but his grip on the toy shotgun was firm. Asterisk, not shaking firm star. He kept adjusting his stance, leaning one elbow on the counter like he'd seen in those military videos. A bead of sweat traced down from his temple, not from heat, but from readiness, from fear, from the weight of what was coming. I wanted to run upstairs and take his place, but this was his decision, his fight. Emily came over and kissed my cheek. 15 minutes. Check camera 4 again. I leaned closer. 4 figures were approaching from the tree line. I whispered, they're coming. North side. My throat dried instantly. Emily took a breath and turned her phone over. Emergency dial ready on screen. I've got Sheriff Daniels on speed dial, she said. As soon as we hear anything, I press. She headed for the hallway, but stopped and glanced upstairs. He'll be okay, she whispered. He's ours. Her voice cracked just a little. Upstairs, Tyler crouched behind the kitchen island, staring at the darkened doorway. His finger hovered near the light switch. His breathing was fast but controlled. Then his mind slipped. He remembered 7th grade, Mark Sullivan shoving him into a locker, and him just standing there, too scared to speak. His knees had locked. His mouth had gone dry. He'd watched his math homework scatter across the floor like confetti. He could have yelled, could have pushed back, but he didn't. That memory tried to claw its way forward until his mom's voice echoed in his mind. Protect people who can't protect themselves. He exhaled, slow and steady, and flicked the switch. The kitchen lights blasted on like stage lights in a midnight theater. Tyler stood up fast, plastic shotgun leveled straight at the 4 figures now frozen in the living room. Freeze, he yelled, voice cracking like dry ice. Drop what you're carrying. Get out of my house. His stance was textbook, feet apart, gun tight to his shoulder, eyes wide and locked. There was no play in him, no hint of a child pretending. He was stone. The effect was immediate. Doug screamed first. Holy, he's got a gun. He spun sideways and slammed into Ray, knocking over a lamp that shattered like a gunshot. Ray yelped, tried to dive behind a chair, and caught the side of the coffee table instead. Frank, always so full of authority, went pale. Son, he stammered, put that down. You don't know what you're doing. This is legal procedure. Legal. But his voice cracked on the second legal, like he didn't believe it himself. Nancy stumbled back, dropping a crowbar with a hollow clang, her mouth open in pure disbelief. Downstairs, Emily heard Tyler's voice and moved like lightning. Her nurse training kicked in, not panic, just swift, practice motion. She grabbed the stun gun, phone in hand, and stepped into the hallway. "Tyler," she called, voice clear, "I've got 911 dialing. Are you safe?" No response, just more crashes from above. Her finger hovered over the call button, breath shallow. I stood behind her, frozen in a loop of disbelief and awe. Tyler didn't flinch. "You're trespassing," he said, voice strengthening with each word. "This is my family's home. Get out now, or the police will be here in seconds." His knuckles were white on the shotgun. His posture didn't waver. His fear had been burned up, transformed into fury. Not the kind that lashes out, but the kind that protects. Then came the chaos. Ray tried to run but bolted the wrong way, slamming into the pantry door instead of the hallway. Nancy shrieked, slipping on a rug and landing hard. Doug stumbled backward, tripped over the broken lamp, and yanked Frank down with a grunt. "Move!" Frank shouted, scrambling to his feet as Ray finally found the hallway. Nancy crawled to her purse, grabbed it with trembling hands, and followed them in a panicked sprint. One by one, they spilled out through the back door, screaming into the night like clowns escaping a fire.